Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel V. Hill, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
Happy Friday, everybody. The last show of 2023. That is absolutely bonkers to me. Thanks for hanging out. I hope your Friday is as good as the Pop-Tart Bowl was, because you guys, it was so much freaking fun to watch that. I am obsessed with this Pop-Tart. But again, I hope your Friday is as good as that, and also your New Year's plans. Tons to get into. Ryan Clark obviously making headlines this morning talking about Sean Payton. And will free agency affect the Denver Broncos? Also, we're going to be doing a Ask Me Anything at the end of the show. So put all of your questions in the comment section, and I will get around to some of those towards the end. But you guys, will free agency be affected for the Denver Broncos with the Russell Wilson move? Can this be a yes and no type of answer? Because yes, I do think it will have a little bit of an impact, but ultimately, at the end of the day, money speaks, and that's where players are going to go. Wherever their biggest paycheck is going to come, that's 100% usually where they're typically going to sign. Now, one of the crazy things is about this is, yes, players do go specifically where they think that they can win. You want to win a Super Bowl. And people came because of Russell Wilson, because there was belief that he could lead this team to win a Super Bowl. So, yeah, are they going to look at a rookie QB and think, oh, 100%, like, let's lock into that guy, or a Jared Stidham if he's the future, which, by the way, I don't think he's going to be the future. I think that they are going to go after somebody in the QB or in the draft. But the answer to this question is kind of a little bit of a yes and no. They're going to go where the biggest paycheck is going to be handed out, but also they're probably going to try and go to a playoff contender. That's just going to be the realization that's going to happen for a lot of these players, I guess we should say. So that's definitely one of those things that we're looking at. And yeah, the Broncos haven't been treating Russell Wilson very right, and people are definitely letting all of us hear about it. Now, I will say that I think that there is a bit of a tale of two sides to all of these type of things. So I always like to preface this, because I am fully aware that we don't always hear everything that comes out of both sides. And Russell Wilson's side has been very quiet, I would say. And obviously we had no idea that any of these type of conversations were happening back when they did after the bye week. I'm still a little blown away that we didn't hear anything in the locker room, didn't seem to be affected, and Russell Wilson wasn't talking to pretty much anybody, because usually if there's a bit of a rift somewhere, you hear about it. Like somebody leaks something to somebody and you end up hearing about it. But we did not hear anything out of Russell Wilson, his team, out of the Denver Broncos. But Ryan Clark really, really let them have it today. So if you have not heard, he essentially was on Get Up this morning, and he said, let's be honest, Sean Payton has behaved as a thug since he got to Denver, undercut Russell Wilson personally and professionally. Now, I think the word thug is a little bit harsh. That's what caught my attention right away when I saw that. I was like, thug. Like, that's a little harsh. But as I ended up listening to the clip, I was like, Ryan Clark has a lot of really good points in this video. And I wish I could play it, but obviously ESPN writes and I'm not allowed to. But he really kind of lays out, some of the comments that Sean Payton had made super early on, even in his opening press conference about Russell Wilson. And he lays out all of these things, and it gets you kind of thinking, yeah, he was 100% going to come in and not have Russell Wilson be the franchise quarterback that everybody thought he was going to be, because you do treat your franchise quarterback differently. I feel like we saw that with Drew Brees and Sean Payton. I mean, he treated Drew Brees, it seemed like, very differently, and he had a lot of faith in Drew Brees. And so the fact that he came in right off the get-go and kind of undercut Russell Wilson, I was like, yeah, I forgot about those type of things. And it's not exactly a good look for Sean Payton. Ryan Clark really laid into him. I know a lot of the guys on that crew ended up laying into him as well. So, yeah, it doesn't seem like right now the Denver Broncos are getting a ton of love as an organization, especially with a new ownership. It's not good. And yet we've all heard about Walmart and billionaires and what it'll mean. And yes, they all have a lot of money and they're able to run big empires and businesses. But we are still talking about people at the end of the day. And I just find it to be a really fascinating kind of look into this. And George Payton, I don't know if he was just signed up to Sean Payton told him, hey, you go do what you're supposed to do. I'm going to tell you exactly how I want you to do it. And he went and did it. Man, George Payton's name is being ran through the mud right now. And it is not looking good, obviously. And then the NFLPA is getting involved. And there's all of these things that are coming with it. It's really actually interesting the more and more we dig into it. And I think the next couple of weeks and months are going to be filled with so much information that I'm like, holy smokes, I think we're just going to continuously find out more and more on this. So of course, stay tuned to denversports.com. We will keep you guys up to date on any of it, but I'm curious your thoughts on this whole Ryan Clark situation and kind of how he's diving into Sean Payton and calling him a thug. Again, that name, I was just like, oh my gosh, that one hurts a little bit. I was like, ooh, that's a bit of a stinger right there. I just don't know. I don't know what side to feel, because I feel like the more information that comes out on this side, the Denver Broncos side, I'm like, oh yeah, like it's a business decision. I totally get it. And then you hear more coming out about the Russell Wilson side. And I feel like this is how a lot of Broncos country is feeling, when we're like, there's just so much. There's so much that's coming out. And it's just, it doesn't feel good. I don't know which way I want to believe. Like, I didn't think that Russ was going to be the future. It never felt like that, if we're being completely honest. Like, even last year, it was like, okay, yes, things could possibly change. When Sean Payton comes in, it's like, oh, and then they obviously get off to the really slow start. It was kind of, oh, it doesn't feel like Russ is going to be the future moving on. But the exact same time, you guys, Russell Wilson had such a good career out in Seattle that it was hard to believe that he couldn't play that exact same way. And you were just waiting for the moment for it to click. And obviously, it never did. So I'm curious, if you had to pick Team Broncos or Team Russ, who are you on? Let me know in the comments. Getting to a little bit of looking ahead to the Chargers game, Justin Simmons did not practice yesterday. He was still out with an illness. And then also Courtland Sutton was working on the side field, did not practice as well with that concussion protocol. So 2 names right there. But you guys, when we really do look at the defense come Sunday against Easton Stick, the defense is going to be who wins this game for the Denver Broncos. And that's 100% how it's going to have to be. No matter what Jarrett Stidham does, yes, he could throw for 300 yards and have 3 touchdowns. You're still going to have the defense be able to produce some sort of turnover for them to be able to win. So I'm really going to be paying attention to the defense. I think this is going to be their game to lose specifically, especially because the Chargers defense is not very good either. So even going up against a backup QB who is now a starter, I'm anticipating Easton Stick to definitely have, Jarrett Stidham to have a big sort of game, which also I'm just reminding people, pump the brakes a little bit, just a little bit, on if the Broncos do win and how Jarrett Stidham is going to be the future. That's all I ask of you, just like pump it a little bit. Because I know we're going to see all of the comments of, oh, we should have started Jarrett Stidham all season long. Look at where the Broncos could be. And I'm not taking anything away from him. I think he has been extremely professional through everything that he's gone through too. I think he was extremely professional with how he handled the Raiders situation, how he came into the Broncos, how he handled being the backup. But I do think he's going to have a relatively big game. But again, just pump your brakes a little bit on the, oh, he's the future. He should have saved the Broncos season a long time ago. Let's just pump those brakes a little bit if the Broncos are able to get a victory. But I think it's going to come down to the defense and really putting on a big show. And I think that they need to go out on a high note. The Raiders game really scares me. I'm not going to lie. The Raiders are playing some good ball. They are going and following their interim head coach over there. And yeah, they're playing some really, really good ball. And what's crazy is the AFC West is so open, it feels like at this point. Of course, I expect the Chiefs to take it because I think Patrick Mahomes and them will always figure it out at some point. But it really does kind of just feel like the AFC West is so open. And for years, it felt like we were talking about the AFC West in this situation, like, oh, these are going to be the 4 hardest teams, yada, yada, yada. And now look at where the AFC West is too. So it's just kind of, it's crazy how the NFL can take a quick turn so fast. But I am excited because it is time for Cecil's Fantasy 5 presented by Hooters. Let's get into it. Cecil Lammey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Just making sure I have an okay hair day.
Oh, let's see it. Let's see the flow. Oh, there it is. There it is. Cecil was up early too, of course, over on 104 through the Fan. Good show, Cecil. Obviously, lots of news coming out about the Broncos, but I do want to get into your Fantasy 5 tips because this is a big week for fantasy owners.
Yeah, it's fantasy championship week, and you can turn to some Broncos, even as sleepers this week. So It's one of those times where everything's on the line because this is it. It's win or go home. You should not be playing a fantasy championship in week 18. I've said it for years. The last week of the season, there's too much randomness, and fantasy football already has enough luck and randomness in it anyway. So lower your frustration level, play your championship this week, and I'd say 90% of fantasy championships are this week. So monumental week.
Okay, so let's get in. Well, first of all, Cecil, are you in any championship games this week?
Nope.
Oh, Cecil Lammey, no!
I know. I play in 4 leagues. There's one that I care about. The one that I care about, I did not make it into the fantasy playoffs. Injuries got me. Justin Jefferson got me. It's been a rough year, and honestly, I think there's more randomness now.
Yeah.
But that just might be me with sour grapes.
Oh, that's killer for sure. All right, but let's give your top tips right there. What games are you absolutely loving, or how are you going into your championship game? I know you're always a start your studs guy.
Yeah, start your studs guy, and then just look at the matchups where teams have given up. And I think that's where the Broncos come into play, and the Chargers as a team that maybe they've got a little bit more life, but this one's on the road in front of the home crowd. Sean Payton's going to be excited to flex his Sean Payton muscles. So I look at that contest. I look at Jacksonville against Carolina. I know Trevor Lawrence banged up. It's Friday morning, so I have to watch the injury report. But okay, let's see what Jacksonville can do. But against a Carolina team that's flat out given up. Philadelphia in a bounce back game. So there's some matchups here. The Rams with one of my favorite sleepers this week in DeMarcus Robinson. It's been 4 weeks in a row he scored a touchdown. So just make it 5. And I think that'd be great for fantasy GMs this week. So looking at those matchups, basing it on they're not facing a good team. So they should have their way with them. And that means fantasy goodness for you out there.
Is there any QB that you're absolutely staying away from?
See, that's
Russell
the thing.
Wilson.
Of QBs that are playing, I want to see more from Jaren Hall. Again, I don't think you should be in this situation anyway. So, if I say stay away from Jaren Hall, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Of a normal quarterback that you would normally start, the conversation could revolve around, let's say, a Brock Purdy, right? Yeah. Do you have confidence in Brock Purdy this week? Let's say you have Brock Purdy against the Commanders and you've got Geno Smith against the Steelers. You really turn it over to Geno Smith? Projections wise, I have him as less than half a decimal point in difference. So it's kind of a feel thing. I do have Purdy rated above Geno Smith, but it's incredibly tight. So is there a quarterback I'm staying away from? Yeah, the guys that you wouldn't be normally starting anyway, like a Jaren Hall. Is there a quarterback that I am normally starting that I would consider now maybe a Baker Mayfield over a Brock Purdy? Again, projections wise, these are half a point differences. And it really comes down to go with your gut. 49ers traveling across the country, of course, to play the Commanders. So that complicates things. People coming off the 4 interception game, did teams learn about Brock Purdy, or did Brock Purdy just have a bad day? Either way, you've got plenty of tough decisions to make.
No, for sure. Any last, mental, hey, you guys got this kind of notes from you? Because it's hard when you're going into championship, right? You should already have your team laid out. You kind of know who you're going with. Any other mental words you got for everybody?
Yeah, I would say look to some favorite sleepers of mine, and I'll just run through a quick list here, Rachel, because there's quite a few players out there that the Clyde Edwards-Helaire we've seen flash for Kansas City. Not a big fan of CEH. No, didn't think he should have been a first-round pick. That was a Pat Mahomes pick, but Isaiah Pacheco comes back, and then he gets banged up because he's the most, angriest runner in the league. He doesn't care about his personal safety. So Pacheco, basically hurts himself every week.
Yeah.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just there and just steady. Jarrett Stidham placed on injured reserve, Jerick McKinnon, Stidham on the brain. Jerick McKinnon placed on injured reserve. That leads even more for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They do have Deneric Prince, one of my favorites, but he's done literally nothing this year. Justice Hill with Baltimore. I've often said, stop trying to make Justice Hill a thing. But Justice Hill now has an opportunity because Keaton Mitchell was hurt a couple of weeks ago. Gus Edwards is there, but he's the snowplow, if you will. Baltimore against Miami, even with Miami having Jaden Waddle banged up. Hell, everyone's pretty much banged up on the Dolphins, but that's a game where they'd have to go into fast break a little bit more. That leans to a smaller and faster back like a Justice Hill. So I'm not against, starting your studs always, but in these matchups where I know it's going to be a high-scoring game, I know that they're going to have to score points if you're Baltimore to stay with Miami. Miami's going to have to score points to stay with Baltimore. So it's a great combination. That's where a player like Justice Hill, and I've seen this before, guys that you don't even think about winning your fantasy championship, don't make all your decisions based on that. If my recommendation is one thing, but I was beat in a fantasy championship years ago by a guy who had 2 games. His name is D. Brown from Syracuse, who played for the Carolina Panthers. He came in, and what had happened is one of my league mates called into my fantasy show on the Fan and asked me a question. So I'm not going to answer the question differently. So I said, start D. Brown this week. I knew it was killer. It was Mark.
Yeah.
Who, he was always looking for ways around the rules. So he called me. He asked me a question on air. I answered it, knowing that I was now going to face D. Brown in the championship. And D. Brown beat me. And he was a guy that, look up his career stats. D. Brown, Carolina Panthers, literally 2 games in the NFL. And that happens sometimes. So, yes, a Justice Hill, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, these players that you weren't normally starting now can come in and win it all for you. I synced it. I've felt it. It's happened to me. It can happen for you this week.
Okay, Cecil, what's the harshest losers poll you've seen, or best championship that you've seen?
Yeah, me winning. For tax purposes, I won't say how much, but years and years ago, before I was actually hired by Football Guys. So this was 2004. Mm-hmm. So I think the IRS is fine with me. 2004, it was Billy Volek and Drew Bennett, who were on a heater for the Tennessee Titans. And I had entered a contest. It was message board versus the staff at Football Guys. And I'd been a member of Football Guys, since the late 90s. Mm-hmm. Football Guys is one of the oldest fantasy websites out there. So anyway, I told everyone on the message board, I said, I'm going to win this league, and then you guys are going to hire me. I won the league. I won a bundle of cash, and Football Guys hired me. I've worked for Football Guys since 2005.
No way. Wait, that's so awesome.
Yeah, I called my shot, but, I kind of have an ego, if you don't know. And so, yeah, I wasn't against that, and sure. But then again, Billy Volek, what did Billy Volek do? Nothing except for 4 games in the NFL. That's so crazy. If you can catch that heater, catch it, and don't be afraid of it.
All right. Well, I love that. Cecil, stick around because, of course, Cecil's Fantasy Vibe presented by Hooters is over, but I definitely want to get into the Ryan Clark situation this morning that's coming out. I'm just curious your thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, fill me in on it because I just did a radio show. We didn't talk about it, So
Ryan Clark essentially come out, saying, let's be honest about Sean Payton, how he has undercut Russell Wilson. And he says Sean Payton has behaved as a thug since he got to Denver, saying that he has undercut Russell Wilson both professionally and personally. It's interesting. He lays out a lot of things that Sean Payton has said over the past couple of months, kind of undermining Russell Wilson. So I will give him credit there. But to go on and national television call somebody a thug also seems a little harsh.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word thug, regardless of anybody that I'm talking about. But yeah, Ryan Clark's right.
Yeah,
Ryan Clark's right. I think his choice of words is very poor.
Agreed.
I think he should rethink how he says that. But if you want to call him a tyrant, he's a tyrant. If you want to call him an aloha or something I can't say off air, yeah, call him that. Call him a thug's kind of dumb, honestly. In terms of choosing words to use, that's a dumb word to use for Sean Payton and honestly for anybody. Yeah. But if you want to say he's a tyrant and he's difficult to work with and he's old school and he's a curmudgeon and Ryan Clark's right. And this is why you could have just this whole thing was bad from the beginning and you could have done this differently for Russell Wilson himself. I'm not going to necessarily say poor Russ, but I'm going to say poor business habits from Sean Payton because you already have a reputation, and I guess that reputation's not going to change.
I feel that exact same way, Cecil. It's hard to say poor Russ, but also it really does feel like right now they're just being dragged and dragged and dragged. But it leads also to the question of the show today is with all of this coming out, right, about how the Walton Penner ownership group is treating Russell Wilson and Russell Wilson leaving, is that going to affect free agency for the Broncos? Yeah,
because they won't have any money.
True. Fair.
Yeah. I think you need to look at their own free agents first and foremost, and then also look at guys that you would be thinking of rewarding with new contracts like a Garrett Bowles. Garrett Bowles deserves a new contract. Now, the salary cap is a myth, and you can work around that by giving out bonuses and stuff like that. Instead of having high cap numbers, you just have high bonuses and low cap numbers. You can do it. Walton Penner Group could easily afford it. But I think as far as being a player in free agency, Greg Penner even said it last year. We're not going to do this every year. Now they're not going to do it because they won't be able to. And honestly, you fill some holes in free agency. You do not build a team in free agency. It's a problem this team has had for years as they're trying to, put it together, all free agency. You need to draft well and develop your talent. Mm-hmm. That's the best recipe for long-term sustained success in the NFL. The Rams are weird because they did it free agency wise. They got their ring, then they collapsed. But then they just drafted well and started a bunch of young players, and look at them now. So I don't think the Broncos will be in that, free agency Super Bowl window. But if you draft well, the fruits of your labor show up by how successful you are later on, consistently.
No, 100%. Real quick, I'm going to throw out a few names to you. Tell me if you are George Payton or whoever's going to be the GM of the Denver Broncos next. Josie Jewell, are you re-signing him?
Nope.
PJ Locke.
Yes.
Quinn Miners, I think, is on that list. I can't remember right off the top of my head.
The thing with Miners is you might have outpriced on Miners, and you might have been outpriced on Lloyd Cushenberry. Both who have played better than people think. Both have question marks still or whatever. But I like the idea of keeping Quinn around. They like Alex Forsyth, who was their 7th rounder. And I do know one of my dear friends, and it's Emery Hunt, if anyone wants to know, from CBS, one of the best, started on YouTube. And here's why I give it up for Emery. He started on YouTube. Now he's on CBS Sports. And his co-host, Tehran, started on YouTube with him. Now he's on ESPN.
Wow.
Okay, so we're talking about two of the best, two of my dear friends. Yeah. But Emery Hunt had Alex Forsyth as his number 1 center. I did not have Forsyth graded that high, but when it comes from a source like that and a person like that with a knowledge base like that, it makes me rethink it. Obviously, the Broncos like him, so maybe Lloyd moves on, but you might have outpriced yourself now and not been able to afford it.
Okay, Cecil Lammey, always an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful New Year. Stay safe, my friend, and to everybody else. Okay, let's get into a little bit of Denver Nuggets talk. Jake Shapiro was down at Ball Arena last night as the Nuggets put on a show. Take a listen.
Shapiro, Denver Sports. From Ball Arena right here. 142-105. The Denver Nuggets beat the Memphis Grizzlies. It was just a really impressive game all around. The Nuggets controlled the tempo, controlled the pace. But most impressive, at least for the current Nuggets perspective, was Peyton Watson stepping into Aaron Gordon's starting power forward position. He did not know he was going to start tonight and had a career-high 20 points. A kid who barely played at UCLA, barely played in his first season for the Nuggets. He's being relied upon in a very important role for the reigning champs, and he says it's giving him confidence, and Michael Malone is working wonders in terms of developing this very raw player, and this is a player who's going to be a part of the Nuggets' future in Peyton Watson, and it's not just me saying that. Michael Malone is very high on the future of Peyton Watson. So is Calvin Booth, the GM of the Nuggets, who I chatted with a little bit tonight. These guys love Peyton Watson, and guess what? His peers love him too. DeAndre Jordan raved about him last year when I talked to DeAndre a little bit away from where things were going on. Kevin Durant, I talked to about Peyton Watson, has the respect of Kevin Durant. Some of the figureheads of the league are just all over Peyton Watson. They're high on his future. He's only 21 years old. He's coming in and starting and doing well for the reigning NBA champs. And oh yeah, his career high comes against the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Jaren Jackson Jr., who was daring him to shoot, took on the challenge, made 4 threes, and he shut him down defensively, an all-star forward. Held him to 4 boards as well. Just a really impressive two-way game for Peyton Watson, who started his career as a defender and has really worked on his overall game and impacting the game in different ways. Oh yeah, Nikola Jokic had a triple-double tonight. Perfect 11-11 shooting. He's done it 3 times, so no big deal. But Jokic was phenomenal. Jamal Murray was 9-12 tonight. There's not much more to say about those guys. We expect it from them at this point. And it's brilliant to watch when they control a game like that. And now the Nuggets have a test. They've got a back-to-back. They play again on Friday. And it's the Thunder in town. They're one of the best teams in the West. They just beat the Nuggets here in Denver. And Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are playing phenomenal basketball. They can spread the Nuggets out a little bit. And I wonder if, in a way, Peyton Watson actually is a good matchup for Oklahoma City. And we'll see if Malone rolls the dice and goes back to Watson. Jake Shapiro, Denver Sports.
tons going on with the Denver Nuggets. Obviously, despite the Bronco heavy news, we haven't talked a whole lot about Aaron Gordon and what was going on with that situation. We are obviously wishing him well as he recovers from a dog attack on Christmas Day. Peyton Watson, though, being able to step up too, and the Nuggets have been such an interesting thing because you're just like, let's get to the playoffs already. You know that they have the talent. They're able to put it together, but it is nice to see a lot of these younger guys be able to come in and put up some big numbers. And it kind of makes you feel a little bit better about the future of what that's going to look like. A little bit different than the Denver Broncos for sure. But I did say we were going to do an Ask Me Anything. I had asked people over on Twitter for questions too. So drop any that you have in the comments as well. I would love to hear it. Somebody asked, where is Russ landing? I honestly have no clue what the future for Russell Wilson is going to hold. I know he will continue to play football in the NFL. I would be shocked if he has played his final game. Somebody will pick him up. But you guys, I have been thinking about this so much. This has become my Roman Empire as of recently of like, where is Russell Wilson going to land? And I just don't know. I think that it's going to be fascinating to see how the next couple of months play out. But I do think that he will land somewhere. I can go like back and forth on a bunch of different teams of where I think he could land, but I do not know. Who do you expect to start for the Denver Broncos next year? And would you be excited to see the team bring back Drew Lock? I do not think Drew Lock will be coming back to Denver anytime soon. I'm very happy for Drew and some of the success that he's had in Seattle, but I do not anticipate seeing him in a Broncos uniform ever again. As for who I believe the starter will be for the Denver Broncos next year, I do think that they are going to go pick a quarterback in the draft. Right now, I believe they have the 14th pick in the NFL draft. Who that's going to be, I'm not sure. Adam Schefter had joined 104.3 The Fan yesterday and talked about the history of Sean Payton picking in the draft and how, they've had a lot of success underneath that. So whichever quarterback Sean Payton must be eyeing, I think that's going to be the direction that they go. Yesterday, Cecil Lammey got me really excited about Jalen Waddles. So I'm kind of like, okay, maybe that could be an interesting name, or Jalen Daniels, excuse me. Maybe that could be an interesting one that we could be talking about too. So I don't think it's going to be some veteran QB that we see. Would it be interesting to see Kirk Cousins or somebody of that nature? Absolutely. But I do think that they're going to just stick to the draft, see what that's going to look like. And then I think Jared Stidham will obviously still be around if whether or not the QB they bring in is ready to go week one. I think Jared Stidham will start, or he will continue to be the backup. So good question right there, though. But no, I do not think that Drew Lock will be back out here anytime soon. Lots of people are asking about the GMs too. I also saw this comment that just came in. Bridgewater question mark. Teddy Bridgewater said he is planning to retire. He has played his fair amount of football, you guys. I'm excited for him to go into retirement. I wonder if we'll see him on our TVs anytime soon. He provides a lot of excellence analysis. And honestly, he was always a pretty good speaker, at least in my opinion, for the time we saw him. So I wonder if we would see him. But no, I think he is actually going to retire and call it a day. And wouldn't that be just the craziest full circle moment if Teddy Bridgewater came back? Oh boy, that would just be too nuts. Do you think the Broncos will trade PS2 to move up in the draft for a QB? I do think that Pat Surtain will be gone if they decide to move up into the top 5 pick somehow. I do think that despite Pat Surtain being really good, cornerbacks just don't move the needle like a quarterback does. And that's just kind of the reality of it. I really like Pat Surtain, and I really like the player he is, and I think he's so fun to watch. But yeah, I could see them being like, all right, we have to get a quarterback. We need the quarterback to come in and be able to play. So I could see them moving on from Pat Surtain, which I think would be also very, very interesting. And I know a lot of people are like very connected to Pat Surtain and have really enjoyed his play. And I know also a lot of people disagree on this. Some people think he's going to stay no matter what. And some people definitely think he's headed out the door for the QB. I do think that they would probably trade him away if it came down to moving up that close. Who's on the short list for the next GM? Also, lots of GM questions and my mentions. I have a few feelings about this. So people that I would like. I think John Lynch has done an incredible job up there with the 49ers, and I know they have their assistant GMs. I believe his name is Adam Peters. I think that he would be a good name to throw into the mix. He's obviously seen what it's like to have a winning culture up there at the 49ers. I have them winning the Super Bowl this year, so I definitely think that that could be an interesting one. Plus, we've been able to see kind of that QB connection right there with Brock Purdy, obviously not being a super old quarterback of any nature, bringing in somebody like that for the Denver Broncos. So having that kind of connection. But also, I wouldn't count out anybody who is connected to the Saints. I've been saying this for a long time. Sean Payton is making Saints 2.0 here in Denver with the Broncos. I would not be shocked if anybody who is related to the Saints came over here and acted as the GM. But now the question really is when are we going to see George Payton get kicked out, kicked to the curb? What that's going to look like? Is it going to be the day after the season ends and all the players are cleaning out the locker and George Payton is also cleaning out his office? Or are they going to go through the draft? What's that going to look like? I'm not 100% sure, but I am definitely waiting to see because I do not believe that George Payton will be around by the time the season starts next year. I do think he will be out. But those are two names that I'm definitely kind of interested in. Again, the Adam Peters from the 49ers. I think that connection could be really good again with the younger QB out there and just how the winning cultures worked out. And then anybody from the Saints, I think Sean Payton would easily bring over too. So definitely any other questions you guys have, let me know. I cannot believe that it is already going to be 2024, my favorite number 24, all because of that guy right there. I am excited to be heading out to the game on Sunday against the Chargers. Easton Stick obviously coming into town and all of the drama with that will be very interesting. And I'm kind of excited to see Jarrett Stidham. I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I am excited to see Jarrett Stidham come out and play. If you're going to move on from Russ, let's see what Stidham's able to do. He's going to be your backup QB next year. I'm going to be very interested. It makes the game a little bit more fun, to be completely honest with you guys. The Broncos aren't playing for anything. The playoff chances are pretty much zilch. So I'm excited to be able to go out to the game and actually see what it's like. I saw somebody who the other day was talking about tickets and was like, I want a refund on my ticket. You should actually be kind of excited for the game on Sunday to be able to see what a Sean Payton offense could actually look like with a quarterback who can probably run his system a little bit more. So plenty of good stuff. And then after that, I'm going to be celebrating with friends for the new year. So I hope you guys are all having something really fun to do for the new year. And we will see you guys back here on the 2nd in 2024. You guys, that's so crazy. Be safe this weekend. I love you guys so much. Thank you for hanging with me all 2023. And we will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.